They sent me like John Hubbard because he was a troublemaker and I was the good kid. And then he made me laugh so hard every class. It was really disruptive. Okay.
You seem really trouble.
The good kid, yeah.
I thought I heard her say the loud kid.
What?
Recording in progress.
Hi, Jane.
Hey, Jane.
Yeah,
You got a couple of lunch talks today. All good.
one of those, if you're on time, you're late.
No.
Oh, okay.
Tuesday that feels like a Monday.
Is that a good thing or not? No.
I love Mondays. The better when I feel like they're an actual Monday.
Just give me an insight to promote her so that she can speak with us.
Yes.
And then we'll have to talk to her so that she can talk.
Okay. Yeah, no kidding.
Well,
That's Amy.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
So this citizen comment will come at the very end.
Yes. Right.
Okay,
We're ready, yeah.
6:30, call the meeting to order
Yes.
and start with the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Do we have any agenda revisions? No.
Nope, we do not.
Okay. We'll launch right into it. And the consent agenda, any questions on the consent agenda?
I did have a question, which I think I had sent earlier about the minimum basic education and the note in there about. Sorry, I don't have my computer.
It's time immemorial. Yeah, this is time immemorial curriculum. That's what that note, yeah. that's-
Okay, yeah, yes. The
Yeah.
cultural,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, and so we are in the process of working with OSPI, or actually the state school board on that. It's a lengthy survey that is completed in the spring, then approved over the summer. And so we've in our interpretation of the responsibility to adopt the curriculum that's used for that, the state has provided a number of lessons. We've developed our own lessons. We're working with our local groups in supporting that process. So it is an interpretation. And so I was on the phone today with the state board, just kind of working through that how we completed that, and then whether it's for the following year or we're really trying to correct it now is their understanding of what we're doing. And so I'm in the process of doing that, and I can follow up with you regarding that. And it's a note in that letter that's it's approved, but just, basically the state board saying we've noticed that you haven't completed that. And so it's about our social studies adoption, and when did we adopt, and did we adopt all of these, the lessons that were part of the Since Time Immemorial, which again, we are choosing to use some of those as well as use other lessons that we've developed working with our local people. So will that help?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's there going to be a new social studies curriculum adoption
Well,
coming up in the
yes.
next
So
little while?
yeah, so we're looking at that. It's also has to do with the standards, and when
Right.
the standards are revised, and then what's available. And so that is something that we're working on is our adoption cycle for all of our curriculum.
Okay.
Right now, the math and the ELA are the ones the state they're available for us to look at and to start utilizing them, but it's next year, the following year that they're gonna be required
Okay,
to use those. So that sometimes when that happens, then we prioritize those that have been recently updated.
okay.
So we get this case math and ELA.
Yeah.
And again, we're gonna be looking at those and then we're gonna be required to be utilizing those next year. We've just adopted a math curriculum that we think is gonna align well to those standards because we don't think that those standards are dramatically different than previously. Okay.
Any other questions? Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda is approved.
Great, thank you.
Now our informational presentations, we're gonna start with capital projects update.
Yes, so we have a visitor, Adam Cormac, and Les Brown, who is not a visitor, has presented on this particular topic multiple times. We so appreciate Adam and his team for the support they have provided us throughout the capital projects work that we have. So you have a presentation in front of you, and then once they've concluded, I have a document that we'll be sharing with you that just kind of a summary of what the presentation is. So welcome, Adam. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah.
Let's take it away.
Yeah, so Adam is here with RNC Management. They're the group that's been helping do the construction management for all of our capital projects. As a reminder, we kind of started the conversation with the board last fall, winter, about engaging with construction management to run a series of projects that are funded by our capital project levy, which is money that local voters approved in 2023. To help fund a series of projects around our schools. And we kind of created an ambitious cycle for getting a bunch of those done this summer during the period of time when students are not around. And Adam's going to give an update on where we are with each of those.
Yeah, so I'll give kind of a big picture and then we'll get into a little bit of the details. But thank you again for the opportunity to be here tonight. Thank you again for the opportunity to vote of confidence for RNC Management to manage those projects. Dan Bodell, our senior project manager, isn't available tonight, so I'm filling in. But if there is any questions or clarifications that you have, I'll get you the answer. As you know, I think most people know a lot of really good work has happened out there this last summer. And like Les said, it really happened early on and putting a good game plan together, building a solid foundation. And that allowed us to be really successful this summer. Being able to work with Cody and Les and getting those good news and getting that communicated out as well. So we started this kind of charter of there was 6 projects and we actually consolidated the security and ADA projects into one. Just from an efficiency standpoint, we looked at it that having one designer and having one kind of contractor would be much more efficient. And it did. I don't know the exact amount of savings, but it was a much more efficient way. So we accomplished out there, and I would say all of them, all the projects are substantial complete. We're still working on a few of the things, punch list or commissioning or things, but DDC controls at the high school, the boiler replacement at the high school, the security and ADA projects at multiple campuses, the Gauss and Hathaway flooring projects. And then the big project, well, there are all big projects, but the Washougal High School roofing project. So in general, you can see this little matrix on yours. In general, most of the projects were on budget, if not under budget. We're happy to report there is a substantial amount of savings that will go back to the program that will allow some, and you folks, along with the Washougal School District management teams, working on prioritizing what that looks like and what those next steps look like. So we are working with pushing, all the contracts are completed, and we're still working on with professional service and other folks to get those contracts completed and substantially and closed out so we can work with the business department and get those reconciled. And this target number that we have is probably, we'll have an exact number. So this right now is just kind of a target. And over the next couple of weeks, as we as we finish kind of the closeouts and et cetera, we'll really have a better understanding. But we're confident that those numbers are in there.
Close.
Yeah, so
Can I ask you a question about the
yeah,
boiler?
yeah, you bet.
We saved about 30% on the boiler cost. Is that because of a different vendor for the equipment or just an overestimate from the get-go?
It could have been a little bit of everything. It could have been some efficiencies. At the time when some of these, we didn't know if we were going to need 2 boilers, 3 boilers,
Okay.
or more boilers. We brought in a design team to help us be efficient and go through those different studies and exercises. And through those exercises and studies, we were able to reduce, go with larger boilers and only do less maybe than more. So I think some of it has to do with
Great.
some has to do with that. Some has to do with the bid coverage. We got really great bid coverage on that bid day. And so when folks out there know that multiple folks are bidding, they tend to sharpen their pencil accordingly.
So great.
The district also used a state master contract to directly purchase the boilers. So instead of paying the so those are the 2 big, the gas fired devices. So we bought those ourselves off of a state master contract rather than asking the contractor to buy them on our behalf. And that probably saved their markup on them.
Yeah.
And they were like 120,000, something like that.
Yeah. So 20% markups, et cetera. So
But I was happy to see things come under budget.
yeah, us too. And I'll hit on some of these, but that's a really good question. I think the beginning, we set up strategies to be successful on bid day. And so all these projects, we had different strategies on how we did bid alternates and how we set up the bid packages accordingly and who we bid them to. So there was strategies and all that with the goal at the end of the day on bid day that we were going to be on budget or under budget and at least break those out so that this team and you folks as the board of directors can make some informed decisions. So, yeah, we want to.
So really quickly on this list, the bottom item on there, which is the security projects for the district office maintenance and transportation. That's one of the agenda items on this agenda as well. So you'll see that later on as we go through the process.
So the security and ADA door projects, we brought in NIS, Northwest Information Systems as the design team. They not only designed the project for us, but they provided quality assurance and quality control during the install, getting questions answered, making sure things were being installed correctly. They are a huge asset. We went out to bid. GB Manchester was the lowest responsible bidder, and GB Manchester got on board and from the get-go, the week after we awarded that contract, they were already procuring stuff and getting things with the understanding they knew that to be successful, they had to get those things on order, et cetera. So they've been a great team member. So we were able to install new security systems, Washougal High School, Gauze, Cape, and then Canyon Creek. I think there was a few other adjacents that were out there as well. And then the goal was to align with it and be consistent across the board at all the educational sites. Added lockdown buttons, internal external indicators, etc. Upgraded ADA compliant doors at multiple campuses and all of these were through the lens of not only being on budget and schedule, but making sure that we have the quality assurance and quality control. Therefore, why we have NIS doing appropriate inspections along with GB Manchester accordingly. So those projects, we're working through a little bit of the commissioning with kind of the IT department, et cetera, and GB Manchester. There's punch lists that we're addressing, there's warranties, and there's a document closeout, just kind of the more of the project level. So that's kind of where we are to date. And feel free to interrupt me at any time or I can at the end.
Yeah, so any questions about that, security? So now all of our staff use a badge to fob in and use the same badge, right? We're using the same badge, but we still have.
If they're shared between, so currently if they're shared between JMS CRG and any of the other sites, they have a badge for JMS CRG and then the other set of sites. One of the things that the board I think has already approved is replacing the card readers at Jump Guard and CRG with the same type of card reader, so that everybody district-wide just has one badge that works at any one of the sites.
So the only the keys are for inside doors.
Right.
And so then that, I would say a big savings and what can be a risk when you're accessing outside doors, exterior doors with a key, the key gets lost.
Right.
So just really appreciate this, years and years of a lot of labor management discussions. And so that's been taken care of. So
Yeah, so one really huge benefit there is that if a staff person misplaces their keys with their badge, we can disable the badge so that nobody can get into a school using the badge. And then if they find it later on, we can just turn it back on. So it's sort of like your credit card where you can pause it if you misplace it. And that is something that happens on a pretty regular basis. And it's nice not to have to worry about trying to rekey a bunch of doors when there's a key that's gone.
and a gauze and cape where the playground and the door that's used is a cape. It's on the east side, a gauze. It's also on the east side. And so that it really is much easier now for those individuals who are taking students out and letting students back in because they can bob in now versus what we were doing before, which is having an additional key for them.
Now,
Yeah.
are there still hard keys too to get,
There's a few of us.
if there's a power outage?
Yes, there's a few of us that have those keys. Yep.
I think that was another good example of strategizing with NIS too, because we weren't sure the budgets and where they were going to come in because of inflation and tariffs and all that. So we were able to structure a lot of different bid alternates to make an informed decision on bid day, which it turned out to be our plan and very successful. Jumping into the Washougal High School at the boiler replacement, you kind of hit on this earlier that we hired Windsor engineers to be our engineer to design that, but also we brought in commissioning agent, systems commissioning consultants to do the commissioning as well. We worked with Windsor on not just the quantities, but what was the best effort. We also looked at some different strategies of different types of equipment, and we landed on those boilers were the right fit for the time, et cetera. And so we worked on a bid package. We did get really good bid coverage and we awarded that to Stewart Mechanical. Stewart Mechanical's done a fantastic job getting us to the finish line. Again, coming on board, ordering that boiler equipment, or coordinating the boiler equipment, getting it, receiving it because it was supplied by the owner. But we were able to replace those aging systems with modern efficiencies. We were able to incorporate some of the DDCs into those new ones as well for not just efficiencies, but also just for the maintenance folks to be able to dial in and address that. I would say their install is substantially complete. We've done startups. They're just working on commissioning some other things currently. Obviously, there's some closeout and some commissioning things that will be ongoing, but they're ready to heat the spaces and ready to go for when we start getting some cooler weathers. So, and same thing there, just closeout, paper dock state closeouts, except for those are in the works. So another item that's kind of coordinated. Washougal High School is the DDCs, the direct digital controls that were incorporated. ECC did a fantastic job. I would say we are substantially complete with the base scope. There is a few things that we continue to do out there working with Jessica and her team. There's some valves and some different stuff that are being addressed that were not in the base scope, but so those are still ongoing. We did have Windsor, the design team, on board, and then again we had systems commissioning on board to just make sure that quality assurance and quality control, along with obviously the RNC management team being out there on a regular basis. So again, closeouts ongoing, et cetera, et cetera.
Question. So similar to like the turf fields where we know they're going to have to be replaced after X amount of years, do we have any sort of allotment for things like boilers where we know 20 years are going to need to be replaced, where we're moving funds a little bit at a time, or are we just going to rely on a capital? levy for each of these?
So the school district is not currently setting aside money to save for that.
Okay.
So that is something.
And how long do they usually last? They're
These
pretty
ones
good.
lasted about 25.
Yeah, I was just say 20 to 25,
Pushing
25 years.
Thank you.
My assumption is the boilers went in 1999, 2000, so right around that time at the high school.
The next project is the flooring at Dawes and Hathaway. We're able to work with Beresford Company out there, get that procured early, get that done. We're complete out there. We had, just like any construction project, had some issues we worked through, but Beresford was very responsive, and I think it turned out really good. Our prioritizations were entry vestibules at all the entries for the walk-off mats. That was twofold. They were in needed replacement stage, but then also by doing that, it helps support longevity for the corridor carpet. So that was priority. And then the other priority was the corridors that were replaced. So it looks fantastic, looks great, looks really nice and fresh out there. And there is some savings there that I know the team is working on, kind of what that next step prioritization looks like. So
Yeah, so one of the projects that we may come back to the board, and it might be a next summer, depending on what the budget is for this, would be to look at doing some more of the larger spaces at each of these schools that are really in need of new flooring. So they might be things like the libraries or the really large venues. And then as budget allows, to start doing some of the classrooms. We would include input from the staff as well as from the custodians that are there cleaning on a regular basis to identify which of those spaces are the highest priority as we work through that process.
and then last but definitely not least is the roofing project at Washougal High School. I appreciate the team and the leadership. We acknowledged that was a lot of work to get done. And we were, again, had concerns with tariffs, had concerns with so many unknowns. So we brought in professional roof consultants to design the scope, but also to go through a lot of different exercises and rough order magnitude pricing on what that would look like. We ended up doing a substantial amount of bid alternates. We had a strategy for that. Yeah, we went out to bid. We got multiple bids, which was great. We procured Carlson Roofing, and they really did just a fantastic job to get that scope done out there. During the bidding process, we realized we kind of knew it, but we asked the right questions, and we were, people said that's just too short of a period to get that much work done. And so we worked with Les and the team and the staff to see, can we open that construction timeline a little bit. So we did start out there early, and I know there was a handful of folks that were going to remove their bids or not bid accordingly, or their bids were going to go up because of getting that done in such a short period of time. So it's much appreciated. I know it was a little impactful. Our goal was to impact the learning environment as least as possible, and we were able to coordinate and do that. But I know it was impactful on the school. But from our standpoint, we got much better bid coverage, and we got a substantial savings because folks knew that they didn't have to pay that substantial amount of overtime. So we went through a tremendous amount of strategies on that. But in general, looking at this photo right here, I love this photo. It sees kind of all the work that we were able to get done, and now we have a fresh roof that at all those areas. We did in the bid documents. We knew that we were going to run into some dry rot and some other things, so we put in what we call a unit price, so that contractors can't gouge you. They can only charge a unit price. So we ran into a substantial amount of that, not a crazy amount, but we were able to address it and get that addressed. So we're excited that that's complete. It's substantially complete. There is just a little bit of the sheet metal, other things that we're working through, some punch list items on a typical, but for the most part, it's substantially complete. We're just working on closeouts, et cetera, et cetera. So
quick question, I'm new to the board. What's our length of our warranty on this new roof?
I will look. I think it was either a 30 or 40 year, 30 or 40 year warranty that we did. I will double check and circle back. I want to make sure we're giving you the right accurate information. But I believe it was, I think that we put in there a 40-year warranty, but I will make a note and I will send
I
that
think
over.
that might have been for the metal options. I think it was shorter for the composition.
Yeah,
okay.
shingles, but
Let
we'll
me
find it
let me
out.
circle back and get you the exact.
Yeah, just get
It's
information.
Yep,
Yeah.
it's specified in there, and we're working through our O&M manuals, which will have all that information identified in there. So
Okay.
I think you're 100% right, Les.
It's like 40 years.
Yeah.
Can I circle back for a second to the
Yes,
boiler?
yes, please do.
So HVAC efficiencies have improved quite a bit. Do you have any guess on what our energy savings might be with the new?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I know we've done those models with the engineers, and I'd be happy to circle back and get that information for you.
I would just say,
We-
information, is it significant or kind of not really?
I think when we penciled out the different set of options, so we looked at things like replacing it with 3 boilers. There were 3 boilers there to start with. Replacing it with a heat pump, like a boiler backup, and then a couple other variants, including the one that we ended up choosing. The old boilers weren't so incredibly inefficient that there's a gigantic savings. So I would say it was like, if it was even 10%, I would think that was high.
Just curious.
But there might be some efficiency because there's 3 instead of 2, and then these have multiple stages. So they can scale up and down to meet demand instead of running like at full, each boiler running at full capacity anytime anywhere in the building needs heat. And so there might be some more efficiency there, but that might have been harder for them to model. In the thing. I know that one of Jessica's strengths is around resource management and energy conservation, and she'll be paying a lot of attention to how we work with the commissioning process to make sure the building is run efficiently, scheduled appropriately so that people are warm and comfortable when they're there, but the building isn't heating when it's not in use. And then we're working closely with our energy providers, so the Northwest Natural as well as the PUD, to pay attention to those trends and make sure if there's anything else that needs to be tweaked, she'll be on top of it.
Plus the DDC controls having that accessible.
Yeah,
as well.
having everything in that same system now will make it much easier to stay on top of
Monitor and control, et cetera.
right, and to schedule for events
Yep.
so that things are turning off and on when they need to.
So I think the last is just congratulations, and again, thank you for the opportunity to be a part of it. We love being a part of successful things. So thank you for bringing us in and allowing us to help put a game plan together and a roadmap together and try to build a solid foundation. So we're here to support in any way, shape, or form. We're not going anywhere. We're in Southwest Washington, and so we're just super excited. And we'll be here to close the projects out. Make sure you get all the appropriate documentation. So, I guess questions or anything.
Any other questions?
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thanks for being here.
These are fun reports. A lot of
Under budget,
Yeah.
Sleep finished.
right? Mostly finished and still under budget, just like it.
Okay, next on the
Thank you,
agenda
Adam.
is. Thank you, Adam. Further discussion on the board and superintendent goals.
Yes, so we talked at the last board meeting about the school board's goals, superintendent's goals, and we looked at 23-24. I shared a document that was a draft of really, I would call a pretty significant change in what we've been doing. And so I just thought it'd be good for us to have a conversation. I received some feedback from a couple of you, and I haven't made any edits to the current draft. So the idea being at our next meeting, we could revisit them again, and then potentially for in October, the second meeting in October, a decision. And so the idea of just continuing to work on the board's goals and then superintendent's goals based on your feedback. So I'll just be adjusting the draft that I have. So I appreciate those of you who have shared with me your thoughts. And so is there any discussion you want to have now about these goals? Either your goals or the superintendent's goals? Yeah.
Really?
I guess I'll start. I mean, we had our
Yep.
monthly check-in and kind of had some things there. So for me, I love what you've done and put in front of us, because I think it was pretty easy for us to read, and it was a shift from the way that you guys have been planning your goals. But I love how it's tied to the strat plan. And really it's around like the bulk of the goals are like, let's get going on this new strat plan.
Yeah.
Right. And so the timing of that, like how do we roll out a 6-year strat plan in 1 year is kind of how the current one's written. So, and that was some of the things that we talked about,
Yeah.
like, how do we parse that out and maybe a little bit more and,
Right.
and kind of highlight those things. One of the things that caught my eye was just the first goal for the board, which was really to, hey, roll out this strat plan. And it's like, wait, how do we do that? Right. And so in conversations, it's like, well, no, I think the superintendent is going to really
Right.
roll that out. And so more around us supporting
Mhm.
the rollout. So that's
Yeah.
my comment on there.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and also there's a comment that it's very general. And so, this looking at, as you're saying, like, what are the phases of a strategic plan in 6 years? And there's no context to what are those phases. So it's something that we are working on, what the first year looks like. And then, when I say we, it's the team. So the executive team, working with the building administrators who are then supporting the staff and implementing what we've identified for year one. So I would agree that probably is that first goal should be moved down to the superintendent's goal. First goal. Any other thoughts?
I think I already kind of shared mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just really changing it to goals that are specified in the plan versus just, and again, I feel like goal 3, the learning partnerships, I feel like that's more a superintendent type role. I mean, obviously we engage with the community, but like my suggestion was, we really focus on goal 1, which is my drum, is the academics. And frankly, I think a lot of the other stuff feeds into that. So my suggestion was goal should be academics and, whatever that looks like, however we want to, everyone else wants to frame it. I don't know. And then my suggestion was goal 2. Then, since as part of the strategic plan, we're talking about these work groups, really having that be more focused on the second goal. And I guess that is kind of learning partnerships. So, I don't know, trying to fold that in there somehow. Kind of the work that we've already identified as being necessary.
Right.
Folding that into our goals.
I agree with that. I think, focusing on the academics, ultimately, if we're less successful there, one of the things less successful, regardless of any other goals, in my opinion.
Right.
And that's what parents are looking for, and that's just a taxpayer, that's what I'm looking for. Good job.
Okay. So the plan is to continue to revise the draft. As you give me feedback, I will make adjustments, and then at our next board meeting, I will give you an update. And then at the next board meeting after that, then there's the possibility of presenting it to you as for a decision.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
Which again is different than what we've done historically, which I hope you're okay with that. I certainly am being very thoughtful with this. And then at the end of the year that we can go back and look and see, based on what we've identified, how's our progress looking?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, next up is the board and superintendent operating principle.
Right. So during the retreat, we talked about a few of the examples other than our own. You had access to ours. And the idea is that you look at, then I sent you a few more examples, including the model policy from WSD. And so getting feedback from you, again, once I have that, and then looking at all the feedback, and do we want to revise our current operating principles? Do we want to go with something that's a little more basic? Again, there's a variety that we have in front of us. I think I don't know if there's a total of probably 7 or 8 of those as examples. So I know that there's quite a few, and so maybe you haven't had a chance to thoroughly look through them, but just as you're sharing.
I favor streamlining it as opposed to getting bogged down in page after page. Focusing on what's really important for a successful board superintendent working relationship.
Mhm.
Yeah, I feel like anything more than 2 pages, nobody's gonna read as a rule.
Okay,
One, maybe, more likely,
yeah,
but anyway.
okay,
Does that comments?
I think everybody knows I like bullet points.
Mhm.
I think if we could get it down to one page
Yeah.
of just, like, was it
Yeah.
SJISD's ups? Like, I love that where it's just, here's what the board's gonna do, here's what the superintendent's gonna do. Feel like it's easy to consume, and stay aligned with.
okay,
I did like the chart though, right? Like bullet points are good, but
Mhm.
little, you do this, we do that.
Mhm.
Great.
Point,
Okay.
point, counterpoint, really easy. I would definitely say keep that, but I think we could shave a few words out of it.
Yeah,
okay,
that's also, I think, valuable for community to show what you do and what we
Mhm.
do and make it pretty clear that if they have a big complaint about a teacher,
right,
go to you
yes,
as an example.
agreed.
So,
Okay, and to your point, if it's multiple pages, there's a pretty good chance that people aren't going to spend the time going through it. Okay, okay, got it.
okay. Next up, executive responsible 16.
Yes.
Discipline.
Yeah, so executive responsibility 16, Connor is going to join us and he's going to talk a little bit about executive responsibility 16 and then go into a student discipline policy presentation. Which I had sent out to our community, so WSD community, so not the greater Washougal community, that those within, when we sent out Parent Square. And so really it was an invitation to
Right.
join us online, to watch the recording or to come in person, to receive some additional information regarding the policy, which all I did is I shared with you the policy. We had some discussion. So now we're going to get a little bit more detail. There's been a request for the procedure. We have the procedure, so we will share that with you. So you have a copy of it. We also have a matrix that we'll share with you and just kind of look through it. Now it's a pretty large document. So it's probably too much right now to just go through.
Yeah.
But I think the wonder was being curious about. So there's some language in the policy that speaks specifically to what the board's gonna do with working with families and timelines. So that's in the procedure. And so one of the things that came up last year about this time when we presented the first read of what we're gonna revise the student discipline policy, and we actually paused because we knew there was gonna be more work, was regarding what's happening with the appeal process. It seems like there's been some steps that have been eliminated because those were in the procedure and we hadn't shared those. So I know that is something that's on the minds of families, is like, what is my right as a parent when something happens with student discipline? So we will speak specifically to that, as well as some of the definitions and some of the language that's used within the policy and the procedure.
Are you thinking about moving some of that into the policy document?
No, it's still in
Just
procedure.
procedure,
Yeah,
okay.
it really is. Yeah, keeping them separate.
Fine.
Although it's not always like that. At times, it looks like some procedural language is in the policy, but we really want to keep it clear.
Yeah,
Between the policy and the procedure. And the procedure, not only is it for our families and for you to understand, but this is how we do it. And so we have one of the next things we'll do is work with our principals. So our principals know exactly, and we've been actually working with them because these are in statute. What does this look like when supporting a student with behavior, supporting a teacher when the student's been excluded? Make sure our teachers know the impact of these changes in our practice. Okay.
and last question, did
Yeah.
you get much feedback from your community survey?
Have not.
Okay,
We have not gotten much feedback
Okay.
so far, but it wasn't a survey. It was an
just-
invitation.
yeah,
Yep. And so we did not survey them like we surveyed with the cell phone
okay,
policy or practices. This was more of just here's some attachments, here's some links, here's the actual, the policy. And so we're going to we'll probably push out it again in a communications could go out.
okay.
Yeah, with again, similar to what we were just discussing for an October proposal. Connor McCroskey,
Thank you.
yes.
So you received ER16, which is your annual update on student conduct and discipline. Are there any questions that you had after you reviewed ER16?
I had one. So the school level data analysis, what is that data?
Sure. We have a couple things that I'll call out. We have a social emotional screener that we administer at the beginning of the year that gives us information initially just on students' skills around social skills, emotional regulation, engagement with school in general. It's a 2 to 3 minute assessment that kids get along with our academic screener, and gives us some information kind of at the beginning of the year to provide supports initially. We use the Swiss system through the University of Oregon to track behavioral referrals. So those are not exclusions or discipline that an administrator assigns to a student, but they are incidents that a teacher will log. An administrator could also log that. They're often broken into minor incidents and major incidents, and that helps us to track trends across students and across grade levels and see where incidents are happening, at what time, and make decisions to adjust support based off of that.
Thank you.
I see we're continuing our relationship with the Ballmer Institute. Is that?
Mm-hmm.
We are,
That's great. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah, we
yes,
continue to
two
receive.
staff members at a time.
Yep.
So, yeah, we really appreciate that generosity from Rotary and Kathy and Dave Busman. They're the ones who contribute the tuition
Funding,
for that.
yeah.
Yeah, for the funding for that. You know, it's also as far as data, we also look at our discipline data that is OSBI also keeps track of the discipline data. And one thing that Connor, I think, will mention is our discipline data compared to the state. So the percentage of our students that are excluded or suspended in a year is pretty low percentage. But we also look at that, for us, I think it's 2.3%. We look at who those individuals are. So we know who the individuals are, and then we also disaggregate different identities within those individuals. So this is something that's required. It's asked of us to do. So it's also part of the data analysis.
And a few weeks into the term, do you have a sense of how discipline's going in our schools this year?
It's fairly early to make a general statement about how discipline is going. I shared at our instructional leadership meeting yesterday that the overall sense after talking with principals and buildings is that it's been a positive start to the year, that teachers are feeling optimistic, that principals are feeling like that our systems and structures are working to support both their teachers and their students. Great. So ready for the discipline policy and procedure presentation? Did you have another question?
I had one more. Do we ever worry if our rate is too low?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yep. And when Connor mentioned the Swiss, like this is where referrals go. So there's a behavior, maybe it doesn't enter into the discipline. This is just but some challenging behavior, and we know specifically what it is, where it is, how often does it happen, who's the individual. So when we look at that and we see a decline in that, we don't always celebrate that there's a decline, because that might mean that people are frustrated. They're not using the system. Not reporting, right? So it allows us, the importance of staff using it is it gives us information. So if we see designated a hallway during lunchtime, during recess, we're seeing a spike in behavior during recess. So which recess, which grade level. So then we can target our support to those individual adults who are supporting those students, or those individual students and the behavior. So yeah, it doesn't always mean if behavior is going down that's we're doing exactly the right work. So
I have one follow-up because you brought up lunch and recess.
yeah.
So I know at some of the schools, they switched to now they're going to recess before lunch last year.
Yes.
Did we see an improvement in behavior with like letting the kids go and get their wiggles out at recess and then go to lunch versus when we tried to send them to lunch? Any shift there?
One of the shifts that we saw related to that change was more around students eating their lunch as opposed to rushing or not eating so that they could go to recess earlier, right? So
Gotcha.
that was, I think, probably one of the main outcomes of the shift, was that students then, hopefully then in the afternoon, the second half of the day, felt like they were energized and full and had the wiggles out, and were more successful.
So I have elementary kids.
Yeah.
Get the wiggles
Yes.
out.
Get them hungry.
Yes.
So as far as our recess staff, in August, we had an individual who worked with them, and there's gonna be ongoing support for our recess staff in a structure to recess. right? So the students know what the expectations are, the teachers know when they drop them off and when they pick them back up, and while they're out there, there's structure to it. There's rules to the games, and when an individual is challenged with those rules or with just specific behavior that we're supporting individuals, we are not taking away recess, though, are we?
We're not by law.
We are not by
allowed to
law take away recess. Recess is, what's the exact term? It's,
Student directed and unstructured.
yes, the worst structure, bring some structure to it. There needs to be structure.
Teachers feel about not being able to take away recess as
Well, you'd have to
as a
ask them,
tool.
you have to ask them. I think some of them, it depends.
I don't think you find that is a go-to request in schools anymore. Like it used to be, probably when we were in school and I lost recess all the time.
But instead
Same, my friend.
We've
they
triggered
can
it.
do a lunch detention, right?
Yeah, lunch detention in general. There's still a variety of tools that you'll kind of see that teachers have to kind of support classroom management and teaching and learning.
All right,
Great.
I think we're ready.
Great. So just some overview, right? Like Aaron mentioned, the data on the right shows our district as it relates to the state of Washington and the percentage of students that receive some sort of an exclusion, right? So we are not shooting for 0% of students, right? But we do think that time in the classroom equals instructional minutes. And so the more students that are in class, that is a positive thing. And you'll see that our trend is going down, which is positive. We do not discourage the use of exclusion as a tool that buildings can use, but we do want to be thoughtful about using it.
In CICO under intervention, that first bullet, you see that? Let's check in, check out. So it's an acronym that we're using. So that is when there's an adult who is checking with a student when they're coming into school, and then when they're leaving school, they're checking out with an individual
At the building door.
at the building. Wherever it
In
is.
the morning with the counselor, right? So you see right on the left, the prevention, intervention, exclusion, right? Some of the things that we do preventatively to support students having a successful day, having a successful month. You can see some of the interventions, like Aaron mentioned, check in, check out, which is just the idea that like there's an adult that chats with you for 5 minutes, sets a goal with you, and then at the end of the day, reviews the goal, right? And that is a proven intervention that supports students understanding what they're focused on, what they're working on, and has some tangible results related to positive adult feedback, rewards at school and at home and things like that. We put some students on behavior plans that are kind of really focused on the target behavior and replacement behavior. And then our counselors do a lot of work in small groups around social skills, buddy groups, lunch bunch, those kinds of things. And then our kind of third layer is exclusions. And we follow kind of a progressive discipline model where, you know, the first infraction is going to be a lesser level of exclusion than the third infraction of the same type of behavior. And then we always try and engage in a re-engagement process. And the idea is that our time and energy as adults and staff is on the prevention side, right? I want 80% of my time and energy on prevention. And then the other 2 levels are tools that I use, but the idea is that they're used for less students as you kind of go along the continuum.
And Connor, the big jump in the graph, that's the COVID bounce we're seeing there.
Absolutely. That was when everyone was at home and we were not excluding people.
A little bit, we had just a couple.
We told a few parents to put their kids in timeout and we counted that.
You don't use that kind of language in here. It's right. So one more thing I want to mention is we have counselor groups. We also have a mental health therapist, Jim Tegard. We have Wendy Butler who does groups. So there's a variety of different partnerships that we have that provide groups.
So easy to work with Aaron because he previews everything right before I get to it. So just to highlight, right, we do a lot of things year over year that we don't necessarily adjust that are consistent. These are a few of the specific things that we did this year to support students finding success throughout the day. So CRG has an adult that is both a dean of students, supporting specifically student behavior and supporting our special education population. Canyon Creek was assigned a 0.6 counselor, and that individual is also teaching some classes at the high school. At Jump to Guard, we have a mental health therapist that is present 4 days a week that supports students and has a caseload. And then in addition, our elementary class sizes at the kind of K1 and 2 level, you can see those averages. They're small, right? And we think that has a positive impact on students settling into routines, teachers being able to manage classrooms, and therefore instruct in the academic areas.
Is there a plan at the end of the year to kind of reflect on how impactful the mental health therapist was? I think that'd be a good.
Yeah, so it's a contract with East 2 and 12, so we'll
Right.
work with Tracy, David and Tiffany, are the principals at Jump to Guard, and then her supervisor, and discuss, look at because a part of that contract, she's tracking data.
Yeah,
So we can look at not specifically who, but the number of students that she's meeting with on a regular basis.
So now jumping into the updated policy. So these 3 points are OSPI's hopes for the updated policy. So there's an emphasis on student and parent rights that's maybe a little bit more explicit. They've clarified some definitions, consolidated some definitions around classroom exclusions, discretionary and non-discretionary discipline. And then they recognize that the policy is also aimed at supporting the role of the teacher as it becomes more complex and as students become more complex in general, to not have as many hoops or paperwork or procedures getting in the way of them managing their classrooms. Okay. So classroom exclusion I underlined because I know at the previous meeting there was a question around what tools do teachers have. Teachers have a lot of tools that are behavior management tools, like building relationships and setting classroom expectations, and some of those just like basic day-to-day things. Classroom exclusion is one of the levers that they have related to supporting student conduct in the classroom. And so when we think about student behavior becoming disruptive to the learning environment, teachers are the only staff members that can engage in what's known as a classroom exclusion, where they remove the student from the classroom, and they can do that for the duration of the day and up to 2 more days after that. And there's some additional language in there around conferring with the principal and I'm making a plan, and then the student returns a little earlier. But that idea of having the ability to separate the student who's being disruptive from the classroom environment so that they can continue to teach the rest of the students is a lever that's called out in the policy, and then specifically in the procedure, it kind of walks through what that looks like.
So any questions about that?
I have a question about the parent rights, because I feel like we do a good job of outlining, like, if your student is the one who's being disciplined, here are your rights and the appeal, etc. But where I get feedback on is when it's the other side of the table, right? Where maybe a student is picking on another student regularly, etc. Do we feel like we're clear enough and there's a good enough appeals process for those parents if they don't feel like the action taking is addressing the concerns of their student?
That would probably not be addressed in the like student conduct and discipline side of things. That's more the harassment, intimidation, bullying process, where if you feel like your child is on the receiving end of a challenging situation, there's a process and a subsequent appeals process that a family can go through for that specific concern.
Thank you.
The other 2 kind of definitions, right, just so we're on the same page, discretionary versus non-discretionary discipline, right? Discretionary discipline is the typical, the principal, the administrator has the discretion to administer discipline based on student conduct for the majority of what a student might do that's naughty in a school building, right? Non-discretionary are for those larger level things like bringing a weapon to school, bringing a gun to school, being involved in gang activity at the school, things like that, where the principal is no longer deciding what the discipline is. The state statutes are telling us what the discipline is, and we're just following that. So that's the non-discretionary part, and that's for those kind of larger incidents that occur. But the most of the time, we're living in the discretionary discipline world.
How often does a non-discretionary issue arise in a school year?
Yeah, you'll be able to see in the procedure, there is a list of behavioral incidents that would meet that definition. And there are things like having a firearm, kidnapping, arson, assault of a child, robbery, all of those kinds of things. So when you think about like adult criminal activity, those are the non-discretionary.
And do they come up in a school year? Do we ever have those situations?
We do not know typically have any of those types of incidents in the school building.
so rare,
Yeah,
very rare.
but
every few years.
it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is an example of just a flow chart, right? So our legal counsel provides a discipline handbook to us every year that helps us to take the policies and procedures and provides us with forms that we use to support parents understanding the process, and then helps our administrators and staff understand what they need to be doing before, during, and after an incident. And so when a student commits a behavioral violation, is not appropriate at school, there's a couple wings, right? It's either a non-disciplinary corrective action, so that is the teacher redirecting, that is the teacher supporting with a directed break or something like that, or it is the principal coming in, doing a check-in, doing a conference, and then sending the student back. Those are more non-disciplinary corrective actions. So you can see examples: supports, interventions, evidence-based practices. If it is a disciplinary corrective action, that is typically discretionary or non-discretionary. The discretionary ones, where we live, a teacher doing a classroom exclusion is considered a disciplinary corrective action. So it lives in the same bucket as an in-school suspension, a short-term suspension, those kinds of things. And then those non-discretionary are those long-term suspensions and expulsions.
Thought the flow chart was a good idea, but it's really super tiny, I know, so that's.
Why.
Just gonna wait on the
Yeah.
doors.
So to highlight some of the staff, family, and student rights, so the new policies and procedures continue to place restrictions and requirements on the use of some of those larger discipline tools, so those long-term suspensions and the expulsions. Again, this is in support of students being in class and in school as much as possible, and staff not having the ability to just remove a child for 10 plus days, as an example, right? We want progressive discipline. We want it to be proportionate to the incident and things like that. We don't want people not to use discipline, but we do want it to be reasonable and have a purpose. And then parent notification of protocols and discipline. The policy says this falls to the local school board and determining what that looks like. And the example procedure you have will kind of show you what that looks like. And I'll talk you through what an example kind of procedure would be for parent notification. Are there any questions so far? So communication wise, classroom exclusions, right, have an attached ability for like an informal hearing, right? Classroom exclusions have a different notification process than typical like short-term or long-term suspensions. The teacher administers them, the teacher notifies the principal, and then the principal lets the parent know. And the language that you'll see over and over again is that we attempt within a reasonable amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
So we will always attempt within a reasonable amount of time, typically prior to an exclusion being administered. So for suspension, expulsions, and removals, the general flow is the student has an initial hearing where they get to tell their side of the story, right? And that happens before any discipline is administered, and that's part of the due process rights of students, is they get to share their side, their perspective, what happened. Then the administrator makes a decision, and they attempt within a reasonable amount of time to notify the parent of their decision. And that decision is typically, right, if you're being notified as a parent, the decision is typically like, this is the discipline that's being administered, right? And then you've got the appeal process, right, which is initially an optional conference with the principal, right? We try to resolve things in a variety of arenas in an informal way where we get the parties together. If that is not an option or isn't wanted, there's an appeal process where it gets reviewed, and then there's a reconsideration of appeal process where it gets reviewed. So the appeal process typically comes to me, where I review, and the reconsideration of appeal comes to the board. And then we've always got the piece around the re-engagement meeting, right, which is just another kind of family, student, staff tool. When anytime a student has been removed and they're coming back, we have a re-entry meeting, it's sometimes called, but it's that re-engagement, it's the repair, it's all that kind of stuff, so that we understand what the plan is, that we're starting with a fresh slate, and that we're moving forward in a positive light.
Connor, what would flip the switch from appeal to reconsideration of appeal, right? Where it goes to you and then you're like, no, this needs to go up a level.
Oh, no, the reconsideration of appeal is if, so we'll say long-term suspension was administered, the parent appeals it, I review the facts, and I determine that the long-term suspension stands, and I communicate that to the family, and the family still doesn't agree with my review and kind of review of facts, then they would do the reconsideration of appeal process, and then the same kind of appeal would come to the next level.
You answered my question, that the family flips the switch.
Mhm.
Any other questions? One more time, any other questions?
So we have the procedure.
It is 13 pages, right? So it goes through in great detail for all the different options, what the procedure is. I gave you the in general flow of when discipline is administered. And there are nuances and there are some additional like specific timelines associated with different types of disciplines, whether it's short-term suspensions all the way up to emergency removals.
So WSD's model procedure, other than what's in red, which is what I've added or what we've added.
So is there like the parent notification piece, is that the template in here? Or like you mentioned that.
All of our letters that we use to notify parents, both of discipline and of the educational services that will be provided in lieu of their student being in school, are provided to us by our legal counsel, and then are used by our principals in our fillable forms. So they have some of the PAT language that's just in there, and then the principals fill out the.
No, I didn't mean an actual template. I just meant like you had mentioned. So that piece about the board decides parental notification. So
you'll see timelines in here
Okay.
around when parents are notified, when they appeal, how long they should expect to receive a response. Those types of things fall to local boards to decide. The state is not telling us at the local level what those timelines and notification procedures should be.
We'd have to know what page that is, would you?
It is throughout
Okay.
because
But
you'll.
WSD has in the
Buckle
model procedure, WSD has identified the timelines to different procedures, steps that Connor has shared. So, and it's really in the appeal, and it's
So you'll see things like general conditions and limitations, and that'll pop up for short-term suspensions, long-term suspensions, expulsions, and then you'll go through all of those, and then you'll get to notice. So it'll say something like suspension and expulsion notice, and then it'll walk through things like no later than one school business day following the initial hearing with the student, the district will provide written notice of the suspension or expulsion to the student and parents and family, right? So those are things around timelines, when parents are notified, and that flow of initial hearing where the student is given their due process of sharing their side of the story to the notice that's provided to families. And then it moves after that to appeals and runs through all the different appeal options, again, for all the different discipline options. So the emergency removals notice is going to be slightly different timeline-wise than the suspension and expulsion notice.
For the detention notice.
Detention notice?
Yeah, so I'm just because when I'm thinking high school age kids, some of those kids babysit younger siblings, et cetera. Like what is, and I don't see the notice for that of like, was it same day? Is it they get a week and they have to serve a detention? I just thinking about the impact of families,
and
like
that's
what does that
where,
look like?
that goes into, it's not discipline.
Okay,
It's we wouldn't consider discipline as it's recorded in our system
okay,
for detentions. That's more like individual teachers. That's something that they may or may not do. It's something building administrators may or may not do. So it's in this discretionary as far as supporting behavior.
so if they do though, is it,
Yeah.
hey, you've got detention after school today, or is it within the next 7 days.
Right, yeah, so that
I'm
is
just
not,
thinking of impact to families, you know what I mean? If
Right,
you're,
like, why didn't my kid come home?
yeah, or if they were supposed to
Yeah.
babysit their 10-year-old sister because they're 16 and now I've got to come home early from work.
Sure.
Like, I just didn't know if we had that, the exclusion, that all makes sense. But for the detentions, do we have that come up enough that it's a worry? And if it does,
No.
what is our notice period?
Typically, our buildings do a good job of partnering with families around, like, this is the incident that occurred. It hasn't risen to the level of an exclusion, right?
Mhm.
But this is the appropriate response, whether it be lunch detention, after school detention, an exclusion from an extracurricular activity, things like that. And it's not an immediate, like, this has to happen now, but like, hey, we're thinking of doing it tomorrow. Are you on board, right? And if there's a concern about that, then it's like, right, it'll be administered the next day. Student refuses to go to the detention, right? It'll just be bumped the next day, things like that. And then for those types of things like classroom exclusion, detention, not being able to go to the basketball game, things like that, there isn't a formal appeals process. There's just an informal request for the parents to meet with the principal and discuss and plead their case or ask for a reconsideration, things like that.
Gotcha. Thank you.
all right. So you have the procedure. Hopefully that helps. This is a matrix. Discipline matrix, which is also provided by WSD, which is not something that we've used recently, but we did have for several years a matrix that we went away from. Probably around 2017, 18, 19, possibly when they revised the discipline, student discipline in 2019. So category 6, type 6 is severe. 5 is also severe. These are the non-discretionary that Connor was mentioning. Then you get down to type 1, which is, disruptive misconduct, dress code, physical contact, defiance. So those, and you see these are, it says range of potential. Potential should be bold and underlined. Potential responses. Because the context matters. How many times we've had this conversation matters. So those things can eventually lead to detention and potentially suspension if it's ongoing. As Connor talked about, like progressive discipline, that is something that exists. Hopefully what's happening is the families are involved in the solutions. They're clear what's going on.
Quick question, when it says no K through 4, what is that?
That means you're not allowed to do that type of a discipline for anyone in kindergarten through 4th grade because of their.
By law.
I was trying to make sure I was reading that correctly. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll emphasize basically what Aaron said, like, this is guidance. This is not something that is going to be like, they did this, let's go across and this is the discipline. It's guidance. It's helpful in aligning practices across buildings so that there's not a significant discrepancy in our response to student behavior. But context matters and principals have a lot of that context and that discretion to administer discipline.
And honestly, one of the reasons we went away from the matrix was because it became, if it's this, it's this. And again, this is where it depends on what is going on. And that's why principals spend quite a bit of time investigating and trying to understand not only what happened, but the impact of what happened. All right. So at this point,
What's the difference between physical aggression and bullying? Principal, like just the level and the continuation of it?
but physical
Yeah.
aggression and bullying doesn't have to be
Mhm.
physical.
Well, I just was looking because like physical aggression, no OSS long, no expulsion, like.
So we can discuss this again
Yeah.
in a few, so once you have a chance, this is why.
Let me read it a little bit. I can't wait.
Yeah, so we can.
Footnote 39.
Right? I'm like,
Minor injury, hitting, kicking.
yeah, because I think about if I've got a
Careful.
kid that's, maybe they're not bullying the same kid, but they're constantly getting into physical altercations, like,
Which is.
this might not be popular.
Yeah,
like,
and so this is where, I think this is a good
This is-
example of where,
Context and history.
yes, and what the board's responsibility is.
Right.
And what building administrators do, and what teachers do, and what the executive team does in supporting. I think this is why a building administrator goes through extensive training on making that determination and why the state has said, you know, you need to look at your data, you need to analyze your data. And there are best practices. And so it's why we started the year working on relationships, because that's really important. But we also have heard quite a bit about behaviors and the impact of these behaviors. And so we are supportive of these changes in the law. And we are looking forward to continuing conversations and then really launching this. Again, our principals are aware, they attend trainings. Our attorney, Stevens Clay, provides trainings. So this is something that it's very important to us. But again, back to your point, like just that's why that matrix can be challenging.
Yeah.
Because you want to go, it's either this or this, or it's black and white with this, it's either this or this, and it's not.
Yeah.
There's things that go into, and when Jim and I actually been talking about restorative practices and what is that, and when do you engage individuals in a hopefully defined common ground, and when there's been an impact, there's been harm, how do we try to restore that? How can we know how to try it, but can we restore it? And sometimes that is used as a method in lieu of something, or it's in addition to. So it just depends. And you've got to have individuals who are interested in being reflective and working through this. And it really is important to have families participate and be aware of this and understand what our rules are. And it's different than law enforcement, right? So we are not law enforcement. They have different guidelines and different WACs and RCWs than we do.
On the family note, I've noticed at least with my son new this year, might be because he's in a new grade, we're getting like not just a little slip of like how he's doing grade wise every week, but it also has like how their behavior was, right? And like where he could work on and his own goal setting. Is that something that's been rolled out district wide? Because I love it.
Yeah, that's an example of like a teacher tool.
Yeah.
Because some teachers emphasize the importance of the expectations and what's happening in the classroom. There should be a connection at home, right? And so parents understanding like this is how the day went. Talk with your kid about it, right?
Yeah.
Positive, negative, all of it. And so no, it's not a district-wide initiative, but there are a number of teachers that will use a communication process that doesn't only communicate about academics or send homework home or things like that. It also says like behaviorally, this is how the day went.
So it is not a formal step
It's an option.
that everyone is using, but it's an option that staff can use.
I'd love to see if we see, and I mean, I know we're limited in what data we can, but like for the classrooms that use that, do we see an uptick in parental involvement and a decrease of issues after those are sent home, or
That's
also
part of
sometimes
like,
it's just extra work that doesn't result in anything?
that's part of what the Swiss system
Okay.
gives us, right? We can see where referrals are coming from, which teachers, we can identify teachers that have low referrals. And then to your point, try to identify what practices may be contributing to the lower number of referrals versus a teacher that has a high number of referrals.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Connor. Well done. Appreciate the information.
Okay, next up is our policy 3241, student discipline.
So that basically was, that was the presentation.
Right.
And so, you know, we did share with our community, the WSD community,
Right.
information about the policy. And so at this point, you know, this is the second reading. Now you have a little bit more context to the procedure, the matrix. I don't know if there's any questions about the policy. And I wouldn't recommend at this point moving on. Unless you feel comfortable with that. I think the idea of the purpose of today or this presentation was to give a little bit more information, because I didn't do that at our last meeting.
Right.
No, I mean, one comment on that is because I did have a question on the policy, but once you start reading the procedure, it really does feel like it's backing up the policy and has answered some of the minor questions that we had brought up on it. So thank you for the follow-up.
Great.
Is there a reason anybody has to postpone adopting it?
I don't know.
It's just, we're adopting the policy and not the procedure.
Policy? We can wait.
Would you like us to wait? I see.
Yeah, because we don't, yeah, we have it as a second reading. We don't have it as a proposal for
Okay.
action.
Okay,
So, yeah, my preference would be that we wait and we, put it in the
Adopt it next
agenda
time.
for a future meeting.
okay.
To be adopted. You had something?
Well, I guess I was just to clarify kind of our role here. So, obviously we do the policy, but are we also then providing any feedback on the procedure, or is this just informational?
So it's, to your point, the board approves policy. We provide the procedure. In that, provide the procedures also to update the board. When we make procedural changes, we let you know that we've made procedural changes. So if there's something you're aware of, you see in the procedure that you would want to have a conversation about, absolutely open to that. Does that answer your question?
I think so. I think I was just, because the stuff I read was very explicit about the board's role in the procedure, that's where I started to get a little
Sure.
confused.
Yeah. Yep. And I don't know that the majority of the policies that use that kind of language about, because I would say it is a little confusing in that, and then it says the board, and what the board's responsibility is. And then even with like communicating with the community, right? That's superintendent and superintendent's team. We do that.
Right.
So that can be challenging when it says that. And I understand that there might be some reticence to that because it identifies the board's responsible for that. Yeah. So back to when Paul said, look at the principles, what I do and what you do, and the procedure is the team,
Right.
school district team. But it is important for us to update you. And I know that in this example, that was something it really helped, I think, clarify some of the concerns maybe of just not
Yeah.
knowing.
Ida, maybe this helps, like, so if we start seeing issues between the policy and the procedure, I think that we could then go, hey, do we want to amend the policy, which then they would have to react and amend the procedure.
Yeah. The reason I asked is because I don't know if you read the FAQ, but it had a lot of language in there about the board's, the board's role in the parental notification process. Like it was just repeated over and over and over again. So that's why I was a little confused, because the parental notification is part of the procedure.
Mhm.
So then I was like, well,
Yeah, but
what are we supposed to do?
Right. And
So,
I would venture to guess that was because of what this is. And because
Discipline.
the state and OSBI has received so much concern about student discipline and parents' rights and what's happening. So I think that was probably emphasized in the model policy because of that.
That makes sense.
And then it's a local decision, right? It's the board that makes that decision. It's our community makes that decision. With some strong guidance. On things that we have to continue to do as a part of our minimum basic.
RCW.
Yeah. All right. So we're gonna bring this back.
sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Next up is approved. So there's a citizen comment on National Disability Employment.
Yeah, but that's not during
that
this. That's
directed
later.
at the
That's
ADA?
it's
No.
later.
Yeah,
Later in the
okay.
meeting, yeah.
So approve ADA and security upgrade contract.
So that's for the district office,
Right.
maintenance and transportation. Yeah, with the funds that we have as part of the
Right.
capital project.
So any
capital
questions on that contract?
My only question was how many doors was it? Like, didn't get a good sense of like the actual, like, well, what are they doing? It's security upgrades and some ADA doors. Just a,
Is it 180 door?
Yeah, it's just the main door here. And then there's about 8 other doors that'll be electrified.
okay.
So they'll have a card reader, to provide access to like the boardroom door would be one of them. So that we can unlock it electronically instead of having to key it the door for. But the bolt door or all of the doors here are the 2 doors of the maintenance building, 2 doors of the transportation. And then the 2 big gates that are electrified as well for the buses.
And these are the last buildings we have, excluding the the old bus barn.
It just makes the financial numbers seem a little more
What's that?
appropriate.
One door. Why 5 months?
What's that?
Why 5 months for completion?
Just to give them flexibility for scheduling the project, and then, there may be parts of it that are more disruptive, and we might want to do those left during winter for.
Gotcha.
We'll, work with the vendor, we didn't want to do a really narrow window where a company might not bid if they didn't think they would have capacity to do the project.
And the bulk will be done by January. The bulk will be done by January is what the contract is.
Yeah.
Do you think you'll have enough funding to do all these things based on the remainder?
You do. Yeah.
So we want a motion to approve this contract.
Motion to approve.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Next up is approval of the PSE collective bargaining agreement.
Yeah, so you should have a little bit of information regarding the collective bargaining agreement with our classified staff, so the public school employees of Washougal. So Les and our team worked with the PSE leadership team in the spring and early summer. And we're able to come to agreement on a number of language revisions, as well as the compensation package for this 3-year contract. And then on the Wednesday, when we were all together, PSE ratified the contract. So I don't know if you have any questions about it. I just will add how much I appreciate that we were able to reach an agreement. And we were able to do it in a very respectful, civil manner, and just appreciate the team and Les's leadership, as well as the PSE leadership and the team that all of our PSE members and all the work that they do every single day in supporting our students and staff and families. So I think you're.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Question on the fiscal impact of
Yeah.
changes in this contract. Are there significant fiscal impacts?
You know, I wouldn't say there's significant fiscal impacts as far as like, other than, so the compensation
Right.
package and agreeing to IPD. And we talked quite a bit about IPD and that there's a gap in IPD because the apportionment doesn't cover necessarily all the positions we
Right.
have. Unless you want to add anything to other decisions that we're gonna, that it costs
No,
money.
Fortunately, we finished bargaining early enough that we were able to build the budget with the assumption
Of a new
the amount
contract.
that we agreed to. So that budget, there's no budget adjustment
Okay.
based on what is in what you're approving.
And any other language changes, probably there's
Yeah,
no cost.
there's some minor ones, but they won't be something that is like wildly out of bounds. Like, there's nothing there that's gonna trigger a budget adjustment.
Okay, just one random question. What drove the need to sit with them? Like what brought, is this a normal, like every year we just kind of go through and just, hey, let's take a look at our contract and see what we.
Oh, great question.
That's a 3-year contract.
Yeah, so it was a 3-year contract. So and I think the last contract we had in there that we would bargain compensation only. This agreement is, we don't have that in there. So yeah, and unless there's something significant, we won't come back together with them for 3 years.
I mean, I say that because it's pretty minor changes. So obviously the contract that's in place is working both ways
Mhm.
pretty well, right? That's
Yeah.
the way I read it.
Yeah, I would say that for the most part that's accurate. This was us formally bargaining. Les and Cindy and team meet on a regular basis with the PSE leadership. So we're in constant communication. So in essence, like we're constantly working on those things that are identified as challenging. And so as I think it says a lot about the relationship that we have with the team and our teammates that are in the PSE. So thanks for asking that question. But yeah, it is the duration of the contract.
I noted it was 3 years, right? So I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Yep.
Which really we're excited about. And then when we can get those contracts, so they're on alternate years and we don't bargain everyone at the same time.
Yeah.
That's just always a plus for us. Okay,
So motion to approve the PSE contract.
Motion to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
I,
Opposed? The contract is approved.
Great, thank you.
Okay, now we're down to the comments from the board of directors. So I'll start with Ida.
Oh. Katie isn't here. Well, I'll provide my legislative update.
Oh, cool.
So, late on a Friday, I got a notification from our superintendent that there was assembly the next morning. So, I just wasn't tracking. I don't think I'm fully steeped in this whole legislative process. But essentially, this assembly was a gathering of board directors. There's one representative from each district. And everyone votes on sort of what platform is going to be pursued in the subsequent year. So it was interesting. And I apologize. I voted without really conferring with everyone, but I felt like some of these were no brainers. So hopefully, also is one vote out of 125. So I think you're safe.
Yeah.
But essentially there's a whole, like, there's procedures and bylaws and governance. So some of the voting was just on the structure of the organization, and then there was some about more meat about proposed changes for the platform for next year. And one of the suggestions was, for example, to lobby our legislature to have mandatory training for school board members, which people were very concerned about. They also, attached funding to that, but of course, we can't fund our basic education. So what was interesting to me was just the fact that larger school districts and smaller school districts tended to vote very differently. So I noticed that smaller districts, such as Mount Pleasant, he spoke a few times, just a lot more concerns about impacts to budgets due to changes in policies. So at any rate, it lasted like 4 hours. So, but it was, it was interesting. So that finished, and then the next action, I guess, will be the legislative conference in January. And essentially, I learned this process starts in April. They start generating petitions from districts and everything about changes they want to see for the platform for the following year. And then there's this long, very involved process. I was not aware of going through that. It's very structured. So at any rate.
So the consensus was to implement a mandatory training?
No, there was not enough votes to do that. Okay. So that was one where the smaller districts really felt like that would end up as an unfunded mandate that they did not want to support. I also feel like for smaller districts, we already have a hard time getting volunteers. I don't think that would be a draw. And really, it was proposed by Seattle and supported by Issaquah. So these are very large districts where I would assume having a lot of training is really important, because if you screw up, you screw up. Right? There's a huge constituency. The smaller schools were not in favor. So it did not pass.
Those directors are compensated also. That would make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Did not know that. One of the more, I guess, heated discussions was around one of the positions changing the wording as family as important stakeholders to parents, guardians as the primary stakeholder. So they wanted to change the language to support parents' rights. The bill that passed the legislature. There's a lot of debate around it. It was all very civil, but it did not pass. So people really wanted to keep the families front and center versus having the change to parents. But again, this is all just like legislative platforms. This isn't real. So at any rate, it was interesting. That's my very long
Well done.
Right.
Thank you.
It's the most I've ever spoken in a
It'd
meeting.
be
Thanks for
valuable.
attending a
Yeah.
4-hour meeting for
Yeah,
us.
thank you. You think it would be valuable for us to start contacting our legislators before? We've always waited until that January conference, and I wonder whether it's valuable to individually make contact with our state reps and
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with how active they are or how, you know, what they're actually, like, what our representatives are doing at
they're
this.
on the education committee, I know.
Yeah, I mean, they're not, I don't know. I don't know.
That's a great question. I think it'd be good. I think it'd be good for us to reach out to our local representatives of the 17th. And so I met with Paul Harris recently, Senator Harris, and who is on the committee. So
He is on the.
yes,
Oh,
yeah,
that's great.
yep. So I can share their information with you, and maybe we could see what we could do as far as inviting them
For a visit.
for a chat.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Thank you.
Thanks, Ida.
Yeah.
Well done.
Paul, any comments?
Yeah, I've got a couple here. One, really feel like I'm starting to know what I'm supposed to do here every day. And then the other times, right, with monthly updates with Aaron. And then, so what I've been really focused on is connecting with the community and just kind of getting out there and seeing people and talking to people that come to the meetings. So I don't want to steal Aaron's thunder, but we had a good session on last Friday night where we saw a number of educators and then families that we were able to talk to. I think Aaron will give us a little update on that in his thing there. And then just to follow up on that, I talked to Les a little bit about just bringing the history of our community and our schools and our benefactors kind of more front and center. I think it's something that you should revisit every so often. And he pointed me to that there is actually a whole section on our website that
Run by him.
they run by him that explains history. You know, I'd love to see the number of clicks on that section. If we could track that. But just I think Les and I are going to continue to work on it, just to put together a bit of a one pager that just that goes a little more into the history of the benefactors and less around the history of the buildings. So just who was Hathaway, who was Gauze, who was Fishback, right? We had a
Yeah.
conversation on Friday night.
Yeah.
Who Fishback was, and people were like, really, I did not know that. So thanks,
Sounds like a
Les.
great student project. Yeah.
Yeah,
Could be.
social studies.
So that's what's been on my mind.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, being last is awesome, or almost last. I feel like we're kind of finally back in the flow, at least for my family and many of the families I'm talking to. They're starting to settle into the year. The teachers feel like they're starting to settle in. It's been a good kickoff. Some news recently that had me thinking about our math and science. I don't know if anyone in this group saw it, but in my industry, the $100,000 H-1B applications that companies now have to foot
I saw that.
is a significant
Oh,
impact, particularly to startups and emerging businesses, which potentially could correlate to an even larger demand for those folks with extensive math and science experience. So it's kind of that balancing act of, I absolutely believe we need to be focusing on the trades as well. And we can't lose sight of the major need we have for folks that are well educated in that area simultaneously and how we're going to meet both of those needs. I don't know the answer, but it's been on my mind as I canceled a few folks' applications because we can't afford them, which is,
Yeah.
and then where do you find that talent? So then on the other side, as we talk about how do we create these opportunities for students, hearing more about our district optimization plans is definitely high on my list of things. I know we had talked about discussing it tonight. There's a lot going on and a lot to talk about, but definitely don't want to let that get lost because there is changes coming faster and faster. And we've got to somehow balance the fun of moving at a pace where everyone can get behind and have their voices heard, and also not moving so slowly that we miss opportunities for our kids. So that is what is on my mind.
thank you.
Thank you.
I was going to talk about that H-1B thing too. It's a huge impact on university research on all areas of American science and engineering research, technology, both academic research and industry. And about 20 years ago, it was clear there were not enough well enough educated American graduate students, and many universities sought out international students to fill those needs in a research lab. Myself and everyone in my department did, and that's going to be much more challenging. So I think our district would be well served, our community would be well served if we develop some kind of initiative to help meet that demand. It's going to be a huge demand. We have some technology right here. I'm sure that the drone company upriver hires international engineers, and upping their salary by 100,000 a year is not feasible. So I agree with Jane on that. And the only other thing I was going to say was the football game. I went to my first Washougal football game. I know one kid in the high school, and it turns out it's Royce Jones. Stellar evening on the field, but it was actually quite the community buzz there. It was very enjoyable. Stands were full. It just had perfect weather. That makes a difference. But it was, I'm glad I did that. I hope I get to do that again.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
Aaron.
Yes, thank you. So I have a few slides I'm going to share with you. You don't have a copy of this. So my update, and I added to this because sometimes people don't know what the superintendent does. And even with the evaluation, like the evaluation tool that I've shared with you that we use, even in that, I think it's kind of challenging. Like there's a lot of educational language that maybe unless you have been a lifer in education, the context. So I want you to be thinking about when I'm sharing information, that idea, like what is the superintendent doing? So I think I've identified some things that I can share with you that might help answer that. So one of the things that this came up in a question like about our state assessment results. So they are live, they are published, you can look at them. So if you go to, and this is a link, so this is really helpful, the OSBI's website and report card, if you Google that, it'll take you to the report card and all of the districts in the state of Washington, the public schools, you can look at their results. So we are looking at our results. Now, the graphic on the right, that is the head count. It's not the FTE, which is lower, and how our apportionment is determined. It's the head count. It's the graduation rate from 23, 24. So it's not 24, 25. It's the, but those are the state results. Excuse me, those are our results. Those are the 2s, 3s, and 4s for 24, 25. Below, so that, well, you might ask, well, how did we do the year before and how did we do the year before that? So that information is in comparison. So our principals are looking at this information. In a couple of weeks, you will have a presentation from our elementary principals who will go into detail. They're building data. We are looking at other districts' data. We're seeing how other districts are doing, a comparison to how we're doing in math, ELA, and science. So we are looking, and we may do some site visits and see if there's some districts, some buildings that are close where we can, I have some questions for them. Jane.
The scores for ELA and math, didn't they change? Like, wasn't last year, it used to be, there were 2 different sets of scores?
Yes.
Didn't it make a change?
Yes. So this is,
Can you explain
these
that?
are the 2, 3s, and 4s.
Mhm.
We're called the foundation scores, and then there's 3s and 4s, which determining is that college ready scores. So those are
And
the
that's
level
new
3s
this
and
year,
4s.
right? Or they're breaking.
Well, last year they did that as well.
Okay, it was last year that was.
But I think before that it wasn't, they wouldn't.
It was just college ready.
Exactly, yeah.
Got it.
Okay, so just so you know, to the question, are they available? Yes, they are. And if you want to talk to me more about that, we can discuss that information and how you can decide.
Can I interject
Yeah.
one thing, actually, along Jane's comment, CT versus college? As we think about how to best serve our families, I think about how many first generation college students I met at the university, and how the goal of many working class families is to send their kid to college. And I hope we don't lose sight of that.
Right.
I mean, we can prepare all these
Yeah.
PT students and they're going to be electricians and plumbers, but in fact, And those are great jobs, the trades, I'm all for it. I said my brother would have
Mhm.
had a much
Yeah.
cleaner twenties in his life if he had gotten into that program.
Yep.
But I hope we don't lose track of the fact that many families aspire, even if they didn't go to college, that their children will do better than they did.
Let me give you a little evidence that we're not losing track.
Yeah,
Is the state has asked all the districts to look at a new system, a process to look at high school and beyond plan, and it's a portal where students have an account and they're going in, and so we have adopted that, and we'll share information in this year about that new resource that the state is paying for helping students start to think about job readiness and what does that look like? What do you want to do? What do you want to be? And what do you need to get to that point? We are adding at the high school college in the classroom credits through Eastern. So now we just added Eastern Washington University, my former university.
that is.
Go Eags, it's Cheney, go
Okay.
Eagles, right? So I'm proud of that. We already have Central Washington University and we have University of Washington chemistry. So I think that's an example of us pursuing college credit for our students that's paid for by the state.
Yeah,
So they get college credit as well as our students who participate in other dual language opportunity or dual credit opportunities.
do we have a program that exposes, say, middle school kids to the options, career options out there?
Yeah, that's the high school and beyond plan.
Okay,
So
but
yeah,
that's in high school.
so that's in middle school.
Oh, that they
It's
developed
introduced
that in
in seventh
Okay,
grade. It's
okay.
introduced, and I will tell you,
And
and
there's
we're
a
going to.
series of speakers or something that come in and
yeah.
say, this is what a doctor
Well,
does.
So there is this new program that I'm describing to you that we will go into detail,
Okay,
and we'll share with you so you can see what it looks like, hopefully from like a student's perspective. And then there's a career fair, the career day at Jump Guard, where they brought in probably 20 different careers that represented. So there are things that we do intentionally to expose students. We'd have the industry fair that's at the high school in the spring. So we'll keep that on the make sure to bring those things up. Yeah. This here is a graphic. This is kind of the question about the minimum basic education requirements and why did the state say, or the state board say, you know what? So about since time immemorial. So this is how we responded in that survey. And so where it says no, the district has updated its social studies curriculum July 24th. So since 2015, so that no is okay. It's just have we adopted the since time immemorial curriculum? And so in this, we said we are continuing to work with updating that current social studies curriculum, as I mentioned to you, the timing of that, the interpretation of this, which the person I talked to said, like, we're going to revise this because it's a bit challenging. And I understand what I shared, that we're working with our local people and we want it to be relevant, right? And it just so happens that Chinook and the people that's not federally recognized.
right.
So this is speaking to federally recognized. And that's so there's some challenges to that for us here in our area and so that made sense. So I just wanted you to share like that we're working on it. So something that we're doing, board visit, those are the board visits that you will hopefully be participating in all of our schools this year. The fall, winter, spring is the executive team, which is Les, Connor, myself, and Shalise visiting our buildings. With each one of those visits, we have questions connected to the school improvement plan that you're going to hear about in the near future, connected to our strategic plan. So this is us going into the building, sitting down with our principals, asking them what they're working on, how they know it's working over the course of the year, and also, again, connecting to the strategic plan, then going to classrooms. So this is new. This is something that we have done previously somewhat in these site visits. So, we understand the board's position regarding our results. We know we can get better. We know we need to get better. And this is one way to do that, is to not just make decisions and supporting them and hopefully removing barriers, but going into the buildings and seeing our teachers and our students and our principals at work. rebranding at the high school. Pretty excited about this. It happened on Saturday with a number of people, including the principal, were there. And this was very impactful for our students to walk in on Monday and see the major changes. These are entrances. The top right one, that's a brick wall. This is where the students walk in. This was paid for by the class of 23, the class of 2023, 2024, possibly 2024 and 25. So this is what graduating classes do, is they provide funds for something for those students who are still in school. So appreciate this effort. That bottom right one, so that was in the evening. I think that was Sunday evening. And so that's what, when you drive by, that's what you'll see. And then the top left one is that's where the students mainly walk in, who walk in from the parking lot. If they walk in from the bus, they don't see that. So that's a different entrance. And then the bottom left that's a major intersection at the high school. And so pretty excited about those pillars. And what you can't tell is the top of it. There's like when you graduate and you have the tassel there, it's a tassel that's hanging down. Yeah. Yep.
I like that.
Yeah. Yep. Pretty cool effort by that team. So sort of things like what the superintendent does. So these are all athletic events that I visited in the last probably 9 days. So as Paul mentioned on the right, that was the Friday night football game. The middle picture, that's the crew that every game is there, and they work the yard markers. They volunteer to do that. And so those are those are graduates, a couple different generations of Panthers. Bottom right is our those are our athletes. Top right, that's at halftime as the football team is coming back, and there's individuals on the field. I think Jim, you might be in there. You and your brother-in-law might be in that group that when at halftime, because you were
Standing there.
You're standing there. Thank you so much, Paul and Jim, for being there. Really appreciated that. It's a great night. The top left or top middle is cross country down at the Cottonwood Beach. So that was last week. We were hosting one event. That happened to be the senior night as well. So there was a lot of people there in the bottom left. That's our coach celebrating our seniors. Bottom middle is Jump to Guard Canyon Creek. That was hosted by Jump to Guard. So that is the one time a year that the volleyball teams play each other. So I'm going to be there. Top left, that is Caleb, who was our JV golf coach. So that was yesterday afternoon. I happen to know him pretty well as he graduated the same year as my son. And I got to coach him when he was 7 years old in basketball. And so just really appreciate him being a part of our team in that role. He is a one handicap. He's a really good golfer. And I could tell from watching, he really relates well with our athletes. So in the middle is just a big thank you to our community for supporting our levy, because everything up there is supported by levy. And each season we have other activities that happen because of the support we receive. So really appreciative of those contributions. So this was today. So if you're not familiar with Read Northwest, that's a partnership that we have. Jane, I know you're a reading buddy. Thank you for that. Up at Cape. So this is what I Read Northwest today. I was reading the story about Dozer Dan, and Dozer Days, which the book was written by an educator in the Tri-Cities. Her last name is Nutter. So Nutter is an organization that's in Vancouver that started here. They do a lot of work around the state, certainly in Southwest Washington. So she's a 4th grade teacher. She wrote this book about Dozer Dan. So that's me reading it with the hard hat. Okay, so I was trying to get into, this is about construction, excavation, excavators, bulldozers. So this is 1st grade at Goss. So got to read to them. On the right, you can see that's actually Dozer Dan himself. He showed up. The kids went nuts to see Dozer Dan. And so then he also went to Hathaway and got to experience the grade 1st graders. So really enjoyed that opportunity to read to them. Those students get to go to Dozer Days, which is October 4th and 5th. If you're interested in going, if you've been, it's a pretty cool event where you can see big equipment rolling. And so we actually talked to the first graders about, their career choices and thinking about what they might want to do. And so several of them were interested in being bulldozer drivers. And so we didn't really get into the education for that. But it is, again, we talked to them about these opportunities, and that, thank you to Reed Northwest, and Brooke Trang was there. She's their director. Anna Paul, the individual helping there, that is Angela Hansen, who's works for our local director for helping our volunteers. So it's a wonderful program. Appreciate their partnership.
You missed your plug. Even if you can't volunteer full time, they need substitutes.
Yes, so if you're interested in being,
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
yeah.
Love it.
Okay.
Read too.
So then things I did mention, so thanks to this team for your efforts, your hard work, your collaboration. Without them, it would be really challenging to do, certainly by myself. And all that they do to support us, Cindy persons who typically isn't here, and the role that Cindy plays in labor relations and answering literally hundreds of calls probably each week, as she oversees HR and payroll. So she is the one who works with Connor and with Les, attends labor management meetings that are monthly, and then really supports all of our employees. So that's, I think, all I have. Again, thank you for attending the General Assembly on Saturday. Okay.
Okay, now we have citizens' comments. And
Yes.
there's one gonna zoom in, so I will.
Yeah, so Les, so you're gonna get ready for Amy Campbell, who was here.
And I'll read the script.
Yes.
There is opportunity for citizen comment on tonight's meeting, both for proposals for action and for general comments. Board and administrative staff like to hear comments from the public. This is our time to listen to you. Because this is a business meeting of the Board of Directors, the board will not respond to any public comments or questions or engage in conversation with the speaker. If follow-up action is appropriate, we'll direct the superintendent to do so. Address comments to the board as a whole, not individual members, staff, or other audience members. We ask that you state your name. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. You hear the bell. We ask that you conclude your remarks. Up to 30 minutes will be allocated for public comment. The board appreciates, listens, and cares about the broad range of perspectives in our community. We value everyone's comments. Thank you. So it is Amy Campbell.
Hello, can you hear me?
Amy, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me? Uh-oh, can you hear me?
Amy, can you hear me?
Let me keep trying. I can hear you. Can you hear me now?
Is she muted?
No?
There she is.
You can hear me? Can you hear me?
But she can't hear us.
I can hear you.
Oh, there we
All
go.
right.
We can hear, now we can hear you.
Yay, okay, thank you. I had to adjust all my settings. I'm so sorry. Okay, my name is Amy Campbell, and thank you so much for allowing a public comment tonight. I feel like I have an exciting announcement. I am a special education teacher in the Camas School District, so right next door to you, but my mom went to school in Washougal, so we have a community connection. I am also a member of the Clark County Developmental Disability Advisory Board. The Developmental Disability Advisory Board advises and makes recommendations to the Clark County Council related to developmental disabilities issues and services. The board provides community leadership on improvement of efficiency and effectiveness of community development and disabilities programming. Here's the exciting part. Each year, the advisory board hosts the Disability Employment Awareness Awards. This year, the event will be on October 8th, 2025, from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Many of the nominees and award winners are former students of our local school districts. So we like to come to board meetings and let board members know that former students are often recognized and local community employers. The awards honor the role of people with developmental disabilities in assisting us to achieve a dynamic, productive workforce and recognize the leadership of the businesses in our communities. The event also celebrates October as National Disability Employment Awareness Month. The live in-person event will be held at Clark College at Geyser Hall, 1933 Fort Vancouver Way, Vancouver, Washington. The event will be live streamed, recorded, and aired on CVTV for those who prefer to watch from home. It is a free public event, though we are asking for registration in advance to just know how many folks might be attending. I can say the email or the email address and phone number, dd.program@clark.wa.gov, or the phone number 564-397-2130. But I'm also going to email the information to Corey Kelly, who I registered for this event with, to pass to you if you're interested. It is one of my favorite annual events, and it is such a fabulous showcase of the work that is happening in large and small businesses across Clark County. And I want to mention, I actually work at Woodburn Elementary School, so very near Washougal. And I don't know if you're aware of Farmer John, who has the family-owned business Get to Gather Farms. And he was honored a few years ago for his work to provide supported employment opportunities on his farm. And he continues to employ supported employees with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So this is happening right in our very own communities with our community members and your past students who are probably already engaging in structured work opportunities as part of their transition programs. So I know you can't ask questions, but thank you so much for having me here tonight. And we hope to see any of you at our special event.
Thank you, Amy.
Okay, that's the end of the agenda. How about a motion to
Adjourn.
adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.